Oh, the ancient Egyptians postulated 7 souls. The top soul and first to leave upon the hour of death is The Sopranos Podcast, Season 6, Episode 1, The Wheel of Fortune. I don't care how close you are, AJ. In the end, your friends are going to let you down. Family, they're the only ones you can depend on. That's a quote from Tony Soprano in Season 6, Episode 1 of The Sopranos, entitled Members Only. This episode was written by Terrence Winter and directed by Tim Van Patten. Folks, we're back for Season 6. I can't believe we're actually covering this. Thank you for being patient during our hiatus. It's holiday season. We have a lot going on. It's crazy here in Soprano land. But look at it this way. The gap between the real Season 5 and Season 6 of the show was a couple of years. You get a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months, you guys got off easy. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mancini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And we are back. Members only. We're back for Season 6, guys.
Members only. We made it. The 6th season.
Let's go!
In some minds, the last season of the show.
That's true. Whether or
How
not...
are we talking about this? Is this our last season? Not really.
So I think we have had a few conversations about whether we're going to cover Season 6 Part 1 and 2 as one giant season or as 2 smaller seasons. I think we decided, though I would argue at the end of all this, that it thematically is one big season.
Yes.
For ease of our show dissection, we're going to treat 6 Part 1 as its own thing, in that it's going to have its own retrospective, and Season 6 Part 2 is going to be its own thing.
And yes, and though we are a spoiler-free podcast, and I will not spoil anything here, it does very much seem to be that Members Only is intended as the first half of a bookend.
Right.
That concludes with the final episode. So it's really not meant to be broken up, but I think for us recording it, it's going to be easier for it to be 2 seasons. And I like recording it as 2 seasons because there's just more time to digest.
Correct, exactly. And that's what this is about, digestion. We're digesting our dinner, and we're about to digest this premiere. Speaking of which, obviously, I think it goes without saying this is a hell of a fucking episode. But easily, to me, the most unsettling premiere of all of them. Am I wrong? From frame one, when we have...
Not wrong.
Yeah, from frame one, when we have an FBI agent puking and talking about nobody ever going broke, underestimating the taste of the American public, through the William Burroughs poem, which... I mean, just line that up, watch that, and then watch the Season 2 opening of It's Been a Very Good Year and tell me that it's not a completely different vibe.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's kick it off the way we always do. Initial thoughts and impressions on this explosive season premiere.
This is my favorite episode 1 of any of the seasons.
Wow. I don't disagree.
I think it's an incredible episode of television. It's an incredible Sopranos episode. And shockingly, I never say this about an episode 1 in a season, I think it's going to end up making like my best of list for the series. I think this episode is really exciting. It's really dynamic. It's super fucking dark. It surprised the hell out of me. And reading about it, I guess it surprised the hell out of a lot of people. I just was so caught off guard by so many things in this episode that didn't have to do with the gunshot at the end. Really, the whole episode is... It's all killer. It's amazing. What an incredible episode back. It must have felt like after those, 22 months or whatever the show was off, it seems like a really good welcome return to the show. Couldn't imagine a better episode coming back.
Fully agreed, Jordan. And we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about Tony's weight gain.
Oh!
I'm talking about the fact that one of the most impactful and insane premieres has a major plot centered around Eugene Pontecorvo, a hitherto
minor character. Yeah.
One of these guys hanging out at the construction site, played beautifully by Robert Funaro this hour. What a spotlight for this guy who's been kind of lurking around, hitting people with Snapple bottles.
And I would argue he's the A-plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
He certainly is. It's a great performance. It is a shocking episode. I really think I'm going to have to marshal my faculties of memory to go back, not to this viewing, but when I first watched it, particularly because of the ending, because we've never seen anything like this on the show. Ever.
Yeah.
We've never had Tony in this kind of jeopardy. Certainly not fading out an episode with him somewhere perhaps about to enter these Egyptian questions that are brought up at the beginning. The Pontecorvo thing is, now, I have to say, in reflection on it, Perhaps I should have been a bit more prepared because this guy was just a thug and then they made me like him, which The Sopranos loves to do before they whack somebody.
Yeah.
So, but the experience of it is like, whoa. It's like getting blown away. Now, other aspects, while I agree that there's certainly an uneasiness about this episode, one of the fascinating things about it is I think it really breaks the mold in the last 10 minutes when Pontecorvo hangs himself and then Tony gets gut shot. 2/3 of this episode, I'm still thinking a lot of this, certainly when I first watched it, this is a standard opener. Not a bad opener, a good opener. Interesting, playing with some different things. It's a Sopranos opener. It's an overture. We're establishing the themes. Does everything blow up at once? No. Things are good. What does that mean? That means that the problems that you're having are going to be examined from the perspective of, are you making some of these problems for yourself? Right. What are the problems in the home life and the family? And they're bubbling up very slowly.
Well, I mean, to your point, Paul, the biggest problem with Tony and Carmela in this episode, until Tony is shot by his uncle, is empty nest. They're dealing with the kids being away. That's such a normal thing.
Yeah, actually, like a sweet and bittersweet element comes up in the scene that we have our pull quote from. It's the only scene Tony has with his kids in the episode. Both of them in the same room, very brief. Yeah, so it's examining some of these things, but it feels not dull, not slow, but like a lot of it, even the Pontecorvo stuff, I kind of felt like we were, for the first half or so, dipping our feet in. Then, forget it. When it takes off in the second half, it's totally different. And it is a whirlwind. And again, I've never seen anything like it on the show. So I had a great time watching it again. There's a lot to unpack right from the start.
Yeah, I think the Eugene storyline is particularly interesting because we've seen quite a few people try to get out of this life. And we've never seen someone just ask. It's a completely different method of trying to do that. And it's so reasonable. And he has an answer for all of Tony's concerns, but you just can't, right?
When you're a jet all the way.
Absolutely. Da-da-da-da-da. So and he's not even just trapped by Tony. He's trapped by the FBI and all of that, and it's just such an interesting alternative telling of wanting to get out and being trapped.
All while Tony gorges himself on luxuries. I mean, well, first of all, if this episode doesn't make you want to eat sushi, fucking nothing will.
Tell me about it.
God damn, the shit they were eating looked so good. The way they were describing it, and in the Porsche, just the materialism these people surround themselves in.
Yeah, but it's no Corvette though, huh?
But yeah, no, I agree with all of your assessments. A hell of an opener. Let's take it from the top, shall we? The Seven Souls montage. Actually, the true beginning is this line. It's pretty safe to say this is going to be a thematic element brought through, but we see Agent Harris here with his new partner, talking about nobody ever went broke, underestimating the taste of the American public. And Harris has to pull over.
Line.
Right?
Yeah.
Great mood setter for the rest of whatever we're going to see.
Wonderful actor. I believe his name is Michael Kelly. He was also on House of Cards. He was the best cast member on House of Cards. He's, I forget the actor's name, but the guy's partner, yeah. The new partner.
Yep. Harris vomits. We're going to find out more about that shortly, but we get a lot of information dumped in this little montage here. Just to cut through it quickly, we see Vito. He's dropped a bunch of weight. Still got a little bit to go, but I mean, you see him holding those pants out. He's lost.
He's doing great.
A whole person. Janice has a baby. Bobby's playing with trains.
This has been a minute.
Oh yeah,
Couple of years,
significant time has passed. It feels like
at least a year, right? Is there some line that tells us how long it's been?
No, but Janice wasn't even pregnant.
Not pregnant, right?
When season 5 ended.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been.
They're probably baby's probably a month or two old. So
I feel like it's the longest amount of time between seasons in the world of the show.
Well, I think Carmela at one point says to Tony, "I dreamt about Aid in my spec house last night," and she says, "I wonder whatever happened to her," or something like that. And Tony says, "Probably went off with some other guy," and she says, "And not call in a year."
Yes.
But I can't tell if she's saying literally a year because that would be weird. Or if she just means, like, it's been a long while. It could be more than a year. I don't know.
Yeah. The spec house was just a blueprint stared at lovingly in the finale of 5, and now there's foundation poured in, there's lumber in place. So, Eugene Pontecorvo is opening an envelope, getting some good news. Finn is enjoying a little striptease from Meadow. Ray is exercising. AJ's in college taking selfies. This might have been the dawn of the selfie, actually. Yeah, AJ was right on.
And that's when cameras started going in on phones.
My God, what a nightmare we're living in. Then we get this incredible little scene between Adriana and Carmela in the spec house, and I think the audience knows she's actually dead, but the writer's got to be having fun with the "ooh, is she still alive?" conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, we don't go into Carmela's dreams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So she's worried all the time. Join the club, and Carmela taking a drag of the cigarette. Aide disappears and wakes up. And then we're in the backyard of Tony and Junior. Thoughts on this opening, the information we're given, the presentation, the use of the poem, and the mood set here. Thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, just a moment ago, I think it's meant to parallel the Season 2 opener, which gave us the status quo in Soprano World at the time, but a much more positive, less ominous one. When I Was 17, I believe, is the song that they're playing in that one. I do not know what to make of the Burroughs poem, the Egyptian gods thing. I looked at the text, I really couldn't parse it. Other than that, perhaps we were hinting at we're going to be dealing with some spiritual themes this season, but that is very vague in this moment. I don't know this poem, I don't know these words, I don't know Egyptian mythology, I don't know anything about that.
Neither do I, really. I mean, and also, I do know that David Chase is interested in these kinds of questions from other cultural perspectives, given where the accident of my birth and where I grew up. My understanding of a lot of these questions, at least the baseline, is from Roman Catholicism, Western religious traditions. There's other traditions, and David Chase, I think, is going to ask us to look at different ideas. It is ominous, it's weird, it's a check back in. There's very fun moments. I like when Ray Curto is exercising, all the good it's going to do him. Burroughs' poem says, the next section is Ba, the heart, often treacherous.
Yes.
Not only is he treacherous, but his heart is going to turn against him.
Correct. Some of the lines actually match up to the images. Adriana fading away is talking about the shadow.
Oh, are they supposed to match?
Memories of this and other lives.
Oh, interesting.
Some of them line up. Some of them don't. Some of them I feel like are just there, but some of them, there is a synchronicity to some of the lines. And then some of it is, we're talking about a secret name and Bobby's playing with a train set. I can't make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, but I actually found on this viewing, I have a lot of questions, just in general. I'll bring up more as we're recording, but there's a lot of stuff. It's not that I didn't understand it, but I didn't understand maybe why it didn't inspire more meaning for me, or maybe that it did, but I'm not sure if it was like the right meaning. We're starting to get into a season of television, and again, no spoilers, where it's like, never has the viewer been trusted with more than in season 6 of this show, starting with this episode. What does this thing mean? Is something that we've often asked of symbols when they've come up in the show, certainly of dream sequences, which are up for interpretation. But now it seems to be occurring even in just the scene to scene. Just trying to link some things together. I've never felt the weight of the show as much as I have in this episode and going forward, of being like really trying to get through the swamp of whatever is trying to be said here. The show asks a lot of the viewer, more now than ever.
Yeah.
This is a more shallow thought, but every beat of that montage gives me the icks. Like,
it's very unsettling.
Correct. You know, Janet's breastfeeding and the way that the Rolling Stones tattoo and the baby kind of go together is just gives me the icks. I don't want to watch Meadow, somebody I've watched grow up since she was a kid, do a striptease for her fiance.
Yeah, she's a beautiful woman, but it's very voyeuristic.
Well,
correct.
It is very voyeuristic, and we must notice that her body looks different.
Correct.
She's about as thin as you can get without being too thin.
Correct.
Right.
AJ in school taking pictures. Ick. Right. We keep hoping something will click in him, and it doesn't.
Ray Curto, the rat, keeps on going on his little.
Correct.
There,
The vomit.
Yeah.
Ick. Even Vito, because it's not just he lost weight. He lost weight with this thing and he's getting press over it, right?
Right.
Also ick. So, and like, okay, good for him, but just every bit of it gives me the icks, including Adriana and seeing how just terrified and depressed Carmela is when she wakes up from that dream. Every bit of it gives me the icks, and it definitely sets a tone for the icks to come.
The 6A, let's call it, is a season or sequence that I've struggled with at times. I still do. There are parts that I don't like as much. There are performances I don't like as much. I think one has to, or at least I give the show a lot of credit, and I celebrate it on this level, be it making people uncomfortable, trying new things. It is never predictable.
Yeah.
It never goes there. It never even settles into a light predictability where, okay, this show is still good, but we kind of get the rhythm overall. It's like unsettling, it's shocking, it's also somehow still a delight. It's still very funny moments. It's still very watchable. So I got to give it up. I was overjoyed watching this to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Again, we've said it 100 times already, no spoilers, but my favorite stretch of episodes is Test Dream through the first quarter of 6A. So we're right in the thick of it for me. I just think it's just such bold storytelling. Bold. To take a risk like this in your last season when everyone's expecting the world of this show at this point, and then also to Jordan's point, to put so much on you. And then to start by making everybody uncomfortable, to your point, Lily. Just great stuff. Speaking of great stuff, Tony and Junior digging in the backyard. This is a sad...
The remains.
Just digging. Junior's looking for $40,000, his share of the Bohax haul from the 70s. Tony's making sure he wrapped it right. This... I remember there's actually a couple people I went to college with, because this episode aired when I was in college, that watched Sopranos for the first time was this episode, even though there was so much left to catch up on. They were hooked right from this scene because it's just so funny. The dialogue here, moles, they drew the ear sprinklers too.
They want nothing to do with them. They go back inside. Tony and Junior are halfway to the Bee and the fucking Ghouls from Providence.
Right.
From season 4. Like, they are spooking out the neighborhood.
Yeah. And Junior, by the way, not that it doesn't become completely apparent by the end of the episode, but Junior's gone. Junior, as we knew him, is finito. He's just out of it. Tony can't even connect with him minute to minute here, and it's frustrating for him, as we see when he wants Janice and Bobby to step up a little more, but they're busy with their own things. They get inside. Is your time more valuable than mine? This little moment always makes Lily and I laugh when she calls Tony. You didn't say hi to your niece? How you doing, hon? Goes
like that's how you say hi to a baby.
Yeah,
how you doing? She's not gonna say anything back.
Junior brings up Pussy Malanga, which is a name we haven't heard since the pilot. That's
Back to the pilot.
Yeah. Crazy. It's the guy that Junior wanted to kill in Artie's restaurant, so they blew it up.
Which was the baseline of their thing.
Right.
Just like the house was the baseline of everything with his mother.
Right.
Yeah. Tony always takes every opportunity, it seems like, to emasculate Bobby. They talk about assisted living. Tony refers to him as Knucklehead Smith. No retirement community. Tony has put in the kibosh on that. He learned his lesson, I think.
Yeah.
Look, that's what's so great is Tony spends the episode preaching the family obligation card, but really there's even underneath that, there's a selfishness of he remembers what happened when he tucked his mom away in a nursing home. So I think part of him is thinking, at least if I'm kind of around, I'll be safe, when it's actually that which ends up biting him in the ass this time too.
Yeah.
Yep.
These emotional issues that he has also make him fairly unreasonable. I'm not a fan of Janice, but it is not reasonable or feasible for them, the Bachelieres, to be the chief caretakers or even the semi-chief caretakers of this guy who can't be alone. They have their own family, they have their own stuff, including a newborn kid.
Three children.
Yeah.
Newborn kid, full-time job. For both of them. I mean, I know Tony says I didn't do that crap, but...
Yeah.
Which is, as you said. Yeah. I mean, it blinds him.
Yeah. Yep. Next scene, we see, how about this sight? Johnny Sack in an orange jumpsuit. Can you believe?
Oof.
Unbelievable, right?
This is another aspect of things being good for the Jersey family. The head of a powerful New York family is in the unusual position of not being in a good negotiating position.
Yeah. For now, at least, it seems Phil Leotardo has a cap on his anger. You asked me to bury the hatchet, John. I'm doing it out of respect. So, for now, Phil seems to be in control. Johnny is operating through Phil. But Phil is the big man in New York right now for all intents and purposes, at least as far as the day-to-day is concerned. So that's important info. Then we get this first scene of what you folks couched as our A-plot here. Eugene comes to see Tony with some David Yurman watches. Again, more luxury, materialistic items that pepper this episode. And he reveals that his aunt has died, leaving him a $2 million inheritance. That's what the envelope was in the opening montage. He wants to retire to Fort Myers. His dad died when he was 53. He's going to be 50 next year. There's no retiring from this. Tony is kind of laughs at him a little bit, but then realizes Eugene is serious. So this is an interesting conundrum. So what Lily said, this is the first time we've seen somebody. It's not somebody just trying to up and leave. It's not somebody snitching, at least that we know of yet. This guy is just asking, let me retire. There have been successful mob retirements, but they're extremely, extremely rare.
Yeah.
And he even cites one. For all intents and purposes, Eugene comes prepared. Like, he's really ready to fight for this. And I think he makes a great case, and I think he does a really good job.
This is a great underling coming to the boss scene in any line of work. He came prepared. He knew what he wanted to say. He knew what he was hoping for leaving the meeting. And he knew when he had Tony. He knew when to stop pushing, too. He knew when Tony was done. And he was like, oh, I'll let Tony kick it around. Okay, yeah, let me think about it. Tony ends up leaving.
Really well measured.
I agree. Tony also doesn't say no.
Right.
He says he'll think about it, and I believe him.
Yeah.
Because it comes up again. Tony has multiple opportunities to say no early on. He doesn't. So I think Eugene did a nice job here. I agree. Tony's thinking about it.
It's so brutal. It's so brutal that at this point in the story we don't know that this is a pipe dream. And how, like, in some ways how simple it is that you want to move to Florida. Junior's dream was Florida. That's where his better life was.
Right.
Simple and clear. These are not rich people. Like a place in I've been to Fort Myers, in point of fact, very near the beach on the eastern coastline in Florida. Very quiet, lovely, better weather. Even if they got a modest house there, they'd have much more space. My heart breaks to think of him wanting it.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
And he has the money.
Yeah.
I mean, we titled this episode Wheel of Fortune. Listen, at the start of the episode, we got this guy wins $2 million. He's fucking dead at the end of the episode by his own hand. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
This is not the only character caught on the wheel, of course. Tony has never been bigger nor more successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone, it can go, all this can go anytime. Really amazes me.
Yes. Well said. Deanne, his wife, who we were meeting Eugene's entire family for the first time.
She's a great actor too.
She killed it. What talk about maximizing your minutes and making the most of your opportunity.
And I assume she's a one-off. She's great.
Really good. Yep. She's already looking at houses, so this is something he and her have talked about. She clearly, as we find out later, has been pushing him, Lady Macbething him, so to speak, to get Tony to... in her mind, they're moving to Florida. Gene just has to work out the specifics. They have a very cute little girl and an older teenage son. He has this fight with his son, older kid, I'm guessing either older teenager or younger college age, AJ age, who sort of still lives with them. It's not entirely clear, but he wants to know where the kid's going, who his friends are, blows him off. It's clearly we don't know much more than that yet, but this is clearly a sore spot for Gene because the argument they have doesn't seem to warrant tossing the candy bowl. So something about this is nagging at him. We'll find out more.
Oh, well, he says he gets high all the time.
Right, still getting high all the time. Yeah, so there's
a substance issue.
Yeah, there's a substance issue.
I told you I'm not getting high anymore.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It is very brief.
Yeah.
It's a more
Well, and
normal...
those issues boil. So while that one incident may not look like throwing a bowl is warranted, it's, they've clearly had these conversations all the time and been through a lot.
Perhaps a parallel with Tony. He's got a smart wife that he can't bullshit. He's got 2 kids, 1 girl, 1 boy. The girl's kind of even. The son's a problem, and it doesn't matter how powerful you are out in the gangland world. You come home and your kids are like, fuck off. And it makes you mad, and you can't really do anything about it. He loves that kid.
Yeah.
You can tell.
And again, I'll iterate, what a special thing. Less observant viewers can watch this episode and say, wait, who's that? You know what I mean? He has really just been like hanging around the Richie Aprile, Ralphie, Vito crew for a long time. Memorable actor, but just hasn't had a ton of screen time. And then he's the star of this episode. He takes a swing and a home run, as far as I'm concerned.
Getting this script, that actor must have been just
through the moon. He must have been through the moon. You get handed this script.
I would rather have this episode and be done than have 100 more episodes the way he's been, 100%, right?
100%, yeah.
And he just crushes it every minute. He does so well.
We get our first sushi outing at Nori. We get the first sense that something is off about Carmela's house. Building inspector Tony promises to get on it. Then she starts nosing around about Adriana. Tony misdirects, talking about the sauce on the shrimp.
How easily he lies.
Yep.
Talks about Ginny.
Talks about what?
She talks about Ginny Sack.
Yeah, Ginny Sack, yeah. Well. So Carmela's anxiety about widowhood, and this keeps coming up. And again, this seems to happen every time to Carmela that we are around Angie Bonpensero, too, as well.
Well, they're all kind of hitting her in the face. I mean, this has been an anxiety of hers the whole show, right? Like, that's why she wanted to go into the stock market. That's why she wants the spec houses. She's constantly fearing what happens if Tony's gone. And she's talking about Adriana. She's talking about Ginny. She's talking about Angie Bonpensero, who, though doing well now, had to work her ass off for it, because let's not forget, we saw her giving out samples at the deli counter.
Yep.
So, I think that there's a lot being kind of pushed in her face that directly affects her anxiety, about her warranted anxiety.
They're having a lot of fun with the foreshadowing, too. Tony talks about the guy who betrayed Johnny Sack being like an uncle to him. Of course, Tony's going to experience a betrayal of sorts by his own uncle just later this hour.
Nicely said. Does all the fish stuff also operate as a portent of death? I mean, we're talking Godfather imagery here.
Yeah, sure.
Big
Or
pussy.
betrayal. Yeah.
Yep.
Something.
It's all raw.
Yep. And yet the bonefish are back in season.
Yep, they're fucking more. He's not taking the meds. And he says, this is one of the Wheel of Fortune questions, lucky, more than lucky, the wheel that we're on.
Yeah. $40 for a piece of fish they just flew in first class. Which is, you got to think about it that way.
And not just a special occasion dinner. We're going to go there all the time.
This is their place now.
Yeah.
Lily and I love sushi, but it's not something we can have all that often. It's
Heather and I love it as well, but it's like, we can't afford that all the time. That's a luxury.
Yep.
We really have to pick the night where it's just like, can we do this week?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Exactly. Yep.
Those of you who don't hang out in Jersey, don't let the environs fool you. This might not look like it's in a fancy spot. That doesn't mean it's not incredible food.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't have like a high price point. Some places in Jersey just look like that.
I went to an Indian restaurant last night that had no ambiance. It was a hole-in-the-wall joint in a not great part of Hackensack. God almighty, it was one of the best meals I've ever had. It was just incredible. So that's very much the Jersey vibe. There's some hole-in-the-wall, dumpy-looking place, and you're like, what? And then the meal is just incredible.
Those are the authentic places. There's a
right. Well, that's just
Jersey is one of the most diverse states in the United States.
Sure.
And the Asian community, Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, you're going to get some real legit restaurants here, and that's likely what Nori is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's where they open, is a strip mall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Continuing through, we get our next little bit here. Hesh out for Chinese with his son-in-law, and we're left in the dark on the situation until another scene or so, but the son-in-law gets roughed up. They get burned out of the car, essentially. They're shouting, quote, "Jerry told you to stay out of Brooklyn." We don't know who Jerry is yet. Hesh is trying to protect him. He gets punched, disrespected, and then by pure fucking
Unlucky.
Wheel of Fortune. He just gets completely rocked by a speeding cab, which is
That was a hit and run, though.
which is maybe the most realistic thing I've ever seen in The Sopranos.
It's brutal,
Just
yeah.
gets mowed down by a taxi, and the guy just keeps going.
I scream every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough to watch. Cut to outside Satriale's. It's been a little bit. This is a fun, usually fun scenes happen here, and I particularly like this one as well. Vito with the weight loss. And here's the thing. So they're doing a fun thing with Vito already. He's clearly going to have an enhanced importance at this point. He's a captain. They allude later on that he's a top earner. He's losing all this weight. I struggle with this as a heavy guy who gets excited when I get on a good run, lose some weight, feeling good, doing healthy habits. But man, I've known people over my life when they're losing weight, it's like all they can fucking talk about, and that's Vito.
Well, sort of a sub-theme in this episode is this weight loss, weight gain thing, right? Tony is the biggest he's ever been.
Yes.
And he's kind of contemplating his weight. He sees that number 280 on the scale, and you just see it in his face for a moment. He's like, oh, I've never been this big before.
Major kudos to James Gandolfini, by the way. That takes a lot of balls.
100%. 100%. Yeah. But he gets on the scale, and you see that on his face. It's a moment of just like, oh, I've never been this heavy before.
Yeah.
Whatever we can take from that. On the other side, Vito's losing weight. And, I guess it's weird because we see Tony's getting bigger as part of what's coming with his success. I think of the moon waxing when I think of that fullness, right? And then you see Vito losing weight, and there's some correlation with that success, but also it's there's something that doesn't feel good about it, right? Is it maybe how it's being presented to us, right? Is it because the guys are taking the piss out of him, or is it that he can't shut up about it? I don't know. It doesn't feel good.
Well, one thing, as someone who's struggled with weight, you're still you at the end of the day when you lose the weight, and so Vito's still Vito.
Right.
Who's not a terribly interesting person, who they like to take the piss out of. They don't have a whole lot of respect for him.
Should have called your sponsor before you bought that jacket.
So yeah, he might look like Frankie Valli, but or in the Four Seasons in that suit, but he's still Vito, and I think that's a struggle for a lot of people who lose a lot of weight, is they expect things to be better, but your issues are still the same. Right.
It's also an interesting shuffle in how they talk about Tony now and how Vito talks about Tony, because Tony's now the biggest guy in their whole circle.
Yeah, even Bobby's thinned out.
Bobby's now thinner than he is.
Yep.
And now certainly Vito is as well. So now the big guy is literally the big guy. He's the biggest guy.
Yeah, it's a struggle for me that Vito is played by Joe Ganascoli because he's not a very good actor. So there's that. And it's weird. The whole thing is a little uneasy and a bit. His newfound ambition is clumsy, so it's a whole factor. But it's lightly touched on in this episode. There'll be more to say.
But to the point, he's a clumsy guy. I just think about the episode with him and Finn.
Yeah, sure.
He's just awkward. He's an awkward guy. And so that doesn't go away, even though he feels more confident. The fat guy doesn't transfer to Tony. They're not going to treat Tony like they did Vito. So
no, certainly not.
The roles haven't really changed, even though physically it might look as such.
Yeah.
Yep. We get an important piece of information here. They're going to expand on this as the season goes on, so we're just going to have to take it at face value. But we find out that Phil and Vito are actually cousins. The situation here is that Vito's wife is Phil's cousin, so his cousin by marriage. We're going to find out more about this, but they're planting some seeds here that Vito is going to be of more importance this season. And then Agent Harris shows up, and we find out some interesting information about him. Agent Harris, Pakistan, anti-terrorism. Post 9/11, a lot of the FBI's resources were diverted. There's a lot in The Wire about this, actually. It kind of dramatically affects situation in the drug war because a lot of the FBI's resources devoted to organized crime and drugs were diverted to Islamic fundamentalist terror squads, essentially. So that's what Agent Harris is doing now. And he just missed the fucking chicken parm.
Veal parm.
Veal parm, excuse me. Interesting. How do we feel about Agent Harris on anti-terrorism here?
Veal parmesan sandwich.
It's a fun development.
Yeah.
It's a little touchdown. It's interesting. I don't know, reflection of the Wheel of Fortune thing or the broad idea that things are good. Tony even has a peace plank with his former FBI antagonist. He's like, oh, I kind of feel bad for the guy when Chris is like, fuck him.
I hope a parasite eats his asshole out, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's like, where are Tony's enemies?
Yeah.
Johnny Sack's in prison. The FBI has other things to do, apparently.
Yeah.
Phil Leotardo is, playing soft. Because there's no threat to Tony right now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why that ending is so effective.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Even fucking Ray Curto. I mean, anything that could be potentially threatening to Tony is eliminated.
Yep. We find out perhaps the Jerry that they were talking about in the Hesh scene was this guy, Jerry Torchiano, known as the Hairdo, who works for Phil. We're going to see him soon. Cut to the scene of the spec house, Doug Fir grade. Unfortunately, Carmela's father's using utility grade. The point of this scene is that they have to essentially start over. The building inspector shut it down. Carmela and her dad have a little fight. Hire? I'm not for hire. You presented us like we were partners. And he gives a line that, again, becomes another thematic backdrop for this whole episode and perhaps the whole season. No good deed goes unpunished. And storms out of the house. But poor Carmela, she's going to need to lean on her mobster husband for this one.
Little symbolic conclusion that, that the house is rotten from the core.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a poem by Neil Gaiman called Instructions, which is very popular. And in the riddles section of that poem, one of the answers, it says, "There is a worm at the heart of the tower, and that is why it will not stand." And I think it must be intentional that the house she's building is built with the wrong wood, the kind of wood that won't keep the house up, that will rot, because the money used to build this place is, it's not the right kind of money.
Yeah.
She's not the right kind of person to be doing this. It's that whole thing.
Yep. Love that. Vito's all over this episode. Again, Artie, where'd you get this bread? The bread museum?
That line is so good.
Good line.
The guys are having Tony wants the shit with Phil settled, but this is the kind of stuff he's worrying about. Nothing existential, just a disagreement between Philip's shy and
a couple of beats ago he's talking about how Phil had earned his respect.
Yeah.
And then he works himself up into this anger about Phil. It reminded me of, I think, when we recorded on Cold Cuts, Jordan said, doesn't Tony just need to find things to be angry about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, here we are again.
Yep.
This is an unforced error that leads that leads to the line. The tag on the scene is, "I can't catch a fucking break." Cut to Tony catching a break and not knowing about it.
Right.
Ray Curto just cardiacking in the middle of this FBI meetup.
Yes. They reference Jenny's brother, the optometrist, who we saw briefly, and we're going to meet him more.
Preciso Stunad.
The first magnitude. And then, Paul, can I catch a fucking break? And boy, does he catch one here and doesn't even realize it. More turns on the Wheel of Fortune. Now, here's what I'll say. I fucking loved this.
Oh, yeah.
What a great twist. Mm-hmm. That said, for a certain kind of viewer, can you maybe see why someone might look at that and say, all that for that? Oh, years of this guy snitching for this?
Oh, I thought that's what made it better.
Right. I agree. I'm trying to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, it was just like, oh yeah, you have seasons of Ray Curto, a little bit here, a little bit there. Remember, that guy's a snitch, and then he just fucking dies. I think it's hilarious.
Yes. As he's handing a murder discussion.
Yes!
That is, the audio is
Finally
bad,
something
but I can
incriminating.
testify.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
It is wild. It's
Perfect.
funny. It's
I loved
unexpected.
it.
But we're not the hits and tits crowd.
Right. Well, and I don't know. I this is how life goes, man. This
Right.
is just Some people disappear. Some people die randomly. You don't always have a grand dramatic death.
Yep. And listen.
Well, sometimes your uncle fucking shoots you, thinking that you're a dead fucking knockaround guy from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, no, these things don't happen, of course, the way that you think they're going to. But that's part of it. They like to surprise.
Yeah, but family's the only one you can trust.
Apparently. You know what? Pour one out for Ray Curto. This guy beat the system in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? He lived to old age while being an informant and having a great fucking time.
He snitched and fucking loved it. He got to take care of his son with MS on gangster money because he still like was a gangster, but he didn't have to adopt any big responsibility.
Yep.
And he goes out and his legacy is he's a stand-up guy, a dying breed. That guy won. He won the mafia.
He won the mafia.
Yeah.
He did. That's as good as you could do. That's as good as you could do.
That's fucking fantastic. I love that. Good. Yeah, here, pour one out for Ray Curto.
Pour one out for Ray Curto.
Oh, man. The best snitch on the show. All right. And we're at this funeral scene. Very funny. Darkly funny. We are getting new season. We are getting some new characters here. We briefly meet, although I don't think he's named this episode. He is credited. We meet Chris's new AA sponsor, Murmur, who's good at forging documents.
This guy's so funny.
It's a little weird drop.
Yeah.
Lenny Venito, I think, is the name of the actor.
I like this actor, by the way.
He's not he's always great, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be here, your fucking AA sponsor.
What a weird thing to drop about the AA sponsor, too, as well. Yeah, my AA sponsor here. Here's a forger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I like that Chris Happ bonded with him over that. That's probably like, oh, you're a criminal? Hey, I'm a criminal too. That's great. As sad as it is, I bet that happens in AA and NA. You meet people who are brush up against the criminal underworld.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, yeah, we're getting sober, but I can meet co-conspirators. I bet that happens.
Well, there's a safety
Absolutely.
there, right?
Right.
Because if you tell on me, I can just tell on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We find out Dick Barone died of Lou Gehrig's disease. I love that, Chris. This is a recurring joke for Chris. You ever think how strange, funny that is that Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease?
And then Tony complains.
Yeah.
You make that joke every time.
He's so fucking morbid.
And then this is more ick. Eugene comes up and has to give Tony a taste of the inheritance. Especially icky knowing that it doesn't ultimately get him what he's looking for.
Right.
But how gross that Tony's even entitled to that.
And was expecting it, apparently.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. But this is thoughtful. Just awful.
What do you think the percentage is for that?
I don't think much. You think a lot?
I would say 10%.
Of the whole
200K?
thing?
You think he'd handed over 200K?
That's the boss. I think from my understanding of the mob is the boss kick up is anywhere from 5 to 10%. I think Tony got at least 100 or 200 of it.
Holy shit.
Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely off guard. I mean, even a 50K would have been a big boost.
I could have said maybe 50.
Yeah?
200's crazy. I mean, to me.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I think
Listen,
being
I'm
in the
not in the
mafia is
mob.
crazy.
Listen, I've never been in the mob. Maybe it's 7%. I don't know. I don't know what the... Well, I don't know.
Well, he
Then
does.
again,
He also does everything, and he, without, I think, being totally obnoxious about it, he pushes. He
Here-
brings Tony gifts. He does the hit. He includes this. Maybe it is standard that it would be more like 100,000. Gene put 200,000 in a big envelope and
Yeah.
said, "Here, give me what I want." I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it buys him fucking nothing.
I mean, here's my thought. These are gangsters. James Gandolfini's agent made $200,000 if he made $2 million.
Right.
So, I don't know. I don't think it's impossible. But,
All right. I'll take it. I don't
yeah.
know.
But anyway, moving on. He's still mulling it. That's where we leave the decision. Eugene, again, doesn't press his advantage, just keeps going. And then we see Rusty. They have a fun conversation here. Again, reiterating
Oh,
what's
not a
up
day
in
over
the-
76.
Not a day. They talk about some mob guy and some capo in Westchester who was doing his own radio broadcast, WRAT. That's good writing. I like that.
Very good.
And guys like that, they're a dying breed. He's still not good with Phil. He was on, of course, Little Carmine's side of things. It's Phil Leotardo here because I can't be in the same room with that man. Tony has to get out of here. He's had enough. Moving on to more DN. They're making an offer on a house, or at least responding to a counter. So that is ongoing. We're going to come back to them again shortly. Tony gifts Carmela, after their next sushi dinner, a Porsche. Cayenne Turbo. Beautiful gift, beautiful car. She's ecstatic about it. I still wish you called the billing department, but oh my God, what a car! Great delivery there. Yeah, this is a nice gift. Nice gift.
Yeah, I thought, 'cause a lot of times Tony's gifts are like an apology.
Mm-hmm.
So my instinct as a viewer of this show is to be like, what's he apologizing for? And then I guess that's not what this one was. This was just reflective of like, Tony's doing really well.
Yeah.
He could just throw a car at you too. Sure, here you go.
Yep.
It's just more of that.
Well, and he could bank it. Is it later this episode, when she's upset at him, and he says, how's the car? A second
this
later.
is pushing off
This is
the political...
So even when he's not surprising, even when he's not apologizing, he's setting the stage for the next upset.
No, this is she keeps asking him to pull strings for the spec house and he doesn't want to do it. So
Right.
this is the diversion.
Okay. Sure.
That's what this is.
Yeah, it's also going to be, it's paralleled with
Expensive
Angie's
diversion.
thing with the car.
Mm-hmm.
Angie's car at the end is going to, interestingly, have Carmela, I think, asking herself some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would probably be cheaper for him just to help with the spec house, but she can't succeed
That's
at
a
anything.
very expensive car.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe College. We got Junior here, AJ. Meadows, some kind of internship. Only scene Tony has with his kids. They're out of the house. Tony makes a joke that AJ lending out his coat to one of his friends who wants to wear it to a party. That's great. You'll never see it again. I love AJ's delivery. You have such a low opinion of people.
Yeah. No shit.
Robert Eiler kills this.
Robert Eiler.
He's very good.
Yeah.
And Tony...
This in this next episode coming up, yeah.
Tony lays our pull quote on him. Your friends are going to let you down. Family, they're the only ones you can depend on.
This is Tony at his most fascinating and paradoxical. He's laying out this idea, which we know will come in for a lot of ironic takes by the end of the episode, but just consider this one scene. Family, they're the only ones you can depend on. These people are Tony's family. He doesn't naturally trust either of them. He obviously doesn't naturally trust AJ, even Meadow. He verifies. So the ethos that he has is one thing, but his experiences, I think, have taught him to trust nobody. That's the paradox of this character to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we go into I don't mean to get too ahead, but like in the next scene when he's talking to Melfi and she brings up Livia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he can't trust. He can't depend on Janice to help with Junior, and I would argue that's understandable with the circumstances right now. But where's Barbara, right? These are two people he can't count on, and we can just even go by history. He couldn't count on Livia. She never loved him. She never helped him. Mm-hmm. Junior tried to have him killed in the first season. So where does this come from? Because the people he can count on are his chosen family.
Right.
Paulie's not going to do anything to him. Paulie's going to do whatever he says.
I weirdly think that maybe this quote is Tony as optimist. Because, he still really tries in his mind to think good thoughts about his mother and his uncle and the way things were and his family. When Livia dies, when he gets that news, one of the first things he says is, "She loved you kids." He tries to preserve them in his mind in a way. And I think to him, it's more about what he was taught. Your family's the most important thing. But we can see that you can't always count on them in this show, and that he probably shouldn't.
Right.
Is Tony's... These are all good points. Like he says, the first part of the quotation is, "I don't care how close you are, your friends are going to let you down." Is Tony's reading that Gene wanting to leave the life is a friend letting him down? Or, "I'm not going to let you get away because I need you and I need you to remain loyal"?
Yeah.
Does he care that much about Eugene?
No, I mean, they're not close like he and Big Pussy were.
Right.
But I think that's the idea. Your friends are going to let you down.
Right.
So don't let them close. Keep them close, don't let them in.
Tony is also, let's not forget there's other context here that is not spoken, that Tony has put his entire future of his family, his enterprise, his legacy into Christopher, his family. So he has to believe that family is going to carry the day because that's what he's banked the future of the family on.
Sure.
Whether that works out, we'll find out, hopefully, before the end of the show. But
Must remember Eugene and Christopher, I believe, were made on the same day.
correct. Yes, very good.
Oh, wow,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that blackbird wasn't just for Chris.
Right, yeah. Yeah, though we also hypothesized that bird was possibly not even there. We don't know. It could have been just a vision for Chris. But yeah, correct.
Yeah, that came back to me that they were made at the same time when it becomes clear in one beat in this episode they did not have the same trajectory.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yep.
Chris very quickly shows Eugene his rank.
Tale of two gangsters, yeah.
We talked about the heart of the Melfi scene a moment ago, so we don't need to dig too much deeper, but there's some great verbiage here. This is a good Melfi scene, good for several reasons. To be clear, I don't think the therapy's going well. Whether the therapy is on any kind of meaningful trajectory at this point is entirely indicated by the fact when Melfi drops that critical line about acknowledging that you had a mother who didn't love you, and the next shot is Tony looking at his watch. He just doesn't want to go there, isn't putting in the work.
He says in the scene with Carmela that he's not taking the meds. There are ways you take meds or you don't, and you wean yourself off them. There is no school of thought anywhere that says your prescribed meds, take them when you want. Or just go off them when you feel like it. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Was this our only Melfi scene this episode?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is this the scene where he also, they're having a discussion about assisted living, and then he actually says it's a nursing home?
It's a nursing home, yeah.
Which is a complete inverse of what he usually does.
Yeah.
People say, did you put your mom in a nursing home? He says, it's a retirement community. This is finally him admitting
it's a
nursing home.
Yeah. He's trying to avoid doing what happened with Livia there. And great line, too. By the way, I have to give credit to this line. He's talking about seeing how Junior was vital, alive, and he tells this story about seeing a nanny with a baby crossing the street and a nanny with an old lady crossing the other way. And Melfi says circle of life, and his response is circle jerk of life. Where's the dignity?
Good. And again, Wheel of Fortune.
Yes. More cyclical.
And this is the only... there's the first beat after the sequence with Seven Souls, Junior's house. This scene, which is mainly focused on Junior, and the last sequence. We don't touch down on it other than that.
Yep.
Gene is the A storyline. It's just that this one is the lasting one.
Right. They visit, they make an overture. The guys, not much to talk about here except how fucking funny I find this scene. When they go to see Ginny's brother, the optometrist, they try on the glasses. They try to set up a meeting or a discussion item to get Johnny to focus Phil. And, you know what? I left my wallet in the car. I'll get you next time. They walk out with
he
these...
was just going for the more expensive sunglasses, but he should have stuck with the Ray-Ban aviators.
They look better.
The aviators look better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I can fuck with that.
I liked Silvio's pair, though, walking out.
Yeah, Silvio's walking out of it.
He got some good ones.
Yeah. Silvio looked very satisfied with those friends. Silvio loves a new outfit or a new accessory to wear.
Absolutely.
Just quickly on the Melfi scene, another funny line. Tony talking about the pillow. Just keep my hands occupied. Like, just so full of shit. We're back to John in prison. They're talking about the potential asset seizure. They want inventory. The feds want to inventory the whole house. Johnny's sinking demeanor when he finds out that Chris wants to buy the Maserati. He'll pay cash, he said, and his head just sinks.
The guy who used to wait in the car and should still be there now is getting it at a reduced rate. Mm-hmm. That's rough.
Yep. Good times for the Jersey crew. This Phil Hesh thing is something Johnny immediately... this is the last fucking thing he wants to be dealing with right now. This is exactly why he's delegated to Phil. Call Phil and have him fucking handle it. And then we get a little moment of him getting emotional looking at pictures of his daughter Allegra's. I guess it's a bridal shower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So clearly that's upsetting for John to see, but...
The soft spot for the gangsters, the kids.
Yes, always. Meeting at the Bing. I almost said mushrooms growing out my ass. Now there's an image. The gist of it is here, they go out back, they hash this out with Jerry Torchiano. It was a big misunderstanding. This is a good scene for the reason that It's a demonstration of how Tony and Phil are operating. This is pretty amicable. This seems like exactly how it should be.
Most level these two have ever been together.
Yeah, no one's losing a temper. You fucked up my friend. Blah blah blah. They name their number.
Yep.
What do you want? 50? Name it. All right, great. Let's do this. Now that that's out of the way, Office Park. They go through their business. Counter offers, apples and bowling balls. They could butt heads at several points. We know this show well enough. There are several points where Tony could have gotten stubborn and made a big stink out of it. And maybe the episode would have been, how do we get Phil to budge on this?
Right.
But that's not what it is.
We're, the viewer, very active in this scene because
Yeah.
we expect two things in that dialogue exchange that does not happen. Okay. Tony, Phil puts out the number 25, or his guy does, and we expect Tony to become very indignant and come back with a ridiculous number or something like that. And when he says it's not enough, Phil says, all right, 50, whatever you want. A complete subversion of our expectations about how that encounter's supposed to go.
Yeah, nobody got punched.
No. Then they move on to the next thing. Uh-oh, this new construction deal. Uh-oh, it's supposed to be Esplanade-like. There was never more conflict than there was about the Esplanade. What's this like going to be between Phil and Tony? I don't know, what's the split? 65-35? That works for you? Sure. That's the whole meeting. Mm-hmm. That's it. As if they're normal people.
Yeah.
But they're, of course, just pretending to be normal people. But it's working.
Yeah.
Chris has a little something to say about it. Why do you
Always cave to this guy.
caving to this guy? I'm not caving. This is a strategy. It's a long-term strategy. I'm not sure what the strategy is. Perhaps it's just trying to keep things even with Phil Leotardo, a guy that there's a lot of bad blood with, which he does acknowledge.
Well, there's a pretty sobering admission from Tony here.
It sure is.
This guy's got 200 soldiers in his family. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about being with the Jersey family is push comes to shove, really, they can fucking smoke you.
Yeah, well, that scene ends Chris saying, "I'm not scared of him." It's like, well, you're not as smart as Tony.
Correct.
And do you think there's an element of Tony feels a little bad that it's Johnny Sack when it very well could have been him? So it's like, let's give these guys a break.
Yep.
Take what I can get because I am free.
Right.
Yep.
And also, he's doing so well already. It's not like he's hurting for more cash.
Correct.
So, interesting stuff. Speaking of interesting stuff, come on, Tim Van Patten. Tim Van Patten's having fun with that Vito hot dog shot. Come on now. Very phallic. Come on.
Absolutely.
And the hot dog milk
right
bun,
out of the
too.
bun.
He's on a diet. Atkins is really big then.
Yeah, yep. He just walks right past the
That
camera.
was like the 90s version of the keto diet, I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
yep.
Same idea.
Yeah, when they're at the hospital with Hesh's daughter, he's like, hot water with lemon would be great. It's like, how about shutting the fuck up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, not the 90s. This is going to be early 2000s,
Early
at this
2000s,
point.
but
Yeah,
yes.
right. Yeah.
Both. It's both. So
Yeah.
you're fine.
Then we get the scene, Paul, you alluded to this. Chris is a captain now. Something we find out here.
Call from Fritzy up in Boston. Lily, they did their research, didn't they? That's who their contact in Boston would be. It would be some Irish guy named Fritzy.
Sure.
Yep.
It's not the first time the show has used the name Fritzy, by the way.
Fritzy Netzy?
From Hoboken? Hey, you know him?
No.
Then shut the fuck up and let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
Chris is essentially ordering a hit, and he has the full authority to. It's come from Tony. It's coming from me. I'm not a fucking captain. Sends this guy debt collection, final notice time. We know what that means. And the most heartbreaking part of this is you can see how badly Eugene doesn't want to do it. But you do a good job on this. I'll put in a good word with Tony on the Florida thing. Okay. This seems to me... I would be under the assumption if I were Eugene, it's like, okay, do this. Maybe I'll get to go to Florida, and this is all right. He's asking me to do this. This is my penance. This is my price to get to Florida. So,
I had a slightly different read on it.
go ahead, please.
But I agree with you. From the Eugene side, that is what it sounds like. All right, do this hit for Chris. This is the last thing I have to do, and then I'm going to Florida. I agree.
Yeah.
That is his take. The viewer's take, and if you're reading it from Chris's side or Tony's side, Tony acting through Chris, I'm kind of like, are you trying to put a murder on this guy right before he's trying to leave so that he feels like beholden to you to like maybe stay because like the murder's going to be something sticky that he can't get out from under? You know what I mean? Like this is something he'd get his foot caught in the door a little bit, or it's a little messy, there's something about this.
It just gives a little more collateral for Chris and Tony.
Right.
I fully agree.
Yeah, like, oh, you're going to go to Florida? What about that thing you just did?
Right.
You know, that's something, you know?
That's gross.
Or at the very least, they let him go and he starts talking. They have something on him too, on him too.
I mean, it's fascinating. A lot of the ways that they treat him seem pretty gross, but they're right not to trust him.
Right?
If that's the operational point of view, that they just trust nobody, it's like, well, don't trust him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a rat.
We find out very soon that his plan was to move to Florida after, and basically come back for the trial, right? Which means testify. So he's absolutely right. Not that that's the double-edged part of it. Tony's gorging himself at Nori. His breathing, by the way, this is to add to his size and everything that's going on with him. The sound of his breathing is all over this episode. They could cut that out. That's put in deliberately. We're supposed to he's just his size, his...
Well, I don't mean to be unkind. He's much heavier than he was.
Yeah.
I think he just has some labored breathing. That happens sometimes.
Right. But I'm saying it's a choice for them to leave it in the show. That doesn't have to be there.
Well, the last couple of minutes is just his labor breathing.
Right, yeah.
He can't even speak.
Yep. Tony's back at the house, weighing himself, taking the shoes off, then the pants. Like how they shot that. But again, very brave of Gandolfini to do this. But they're making a point of it. I love the way they shot this next scene with the empty chairs in the foreground. While Tony and Carmela have this argument about Nori being their special place, and now that the kids are gone, and I sort of get what Carmela's beef is here, but...
Oh, it's the equivalent of watching Game of Thrones by yourself when it's like, yo, we do that together. You know? Or
And I think
insert whatever other TV show
she
that's
says,
more relevant, but...
She said it was our place, no kids, and it was also, I think, sharing that was part of revitalizing the sharing with the kids gone. My parents fucking love doing this kind of thing now, with all the kids out of the house. Going and because they're a little older, my mom doesn't want to cook every night.
Yeah.
It's a shared thing. It's special.
I have places I wouldn't go without Heather.
Sure.
He should know better. I think.
Yeah.
I'm actually on Carmela's side with this one.
Okay. Oh, she's totally right to be a little.
We have a couple places like that, I guess, too. That would be a little.
If I'm having a great Italian meal and you're not there, I feel guilty.
Isn't his defense funny though? I went there alone, Carm.
Well, because the insinuation would be that you're cheating on me, but no, you went alone. That's legit. It's just like, no, you should have gone with me.
Also, in fairness, Chris, I mean, she doesn't scream at him.
She's
just like, you went without me. Like, I got it.
And then, we could go if you want. No, don't be silly. And as he's walking away, how's the car?
He kind of looks he has a look like maybe I shouldn't even tried that.
No verbal response from her, by the way.
Yeah.
That just gives him a look.
Eugene drives upstate to New York, does this fucking hit at this local kind of chicken burger joint. Just kills this guy. Nice clean hit. I mean, assuming nobody knows him up there, just bang, bang, 2-3 in the head. Drops the gun and walks out.
Here are where some of my questions begin. Or I should say continue.
I believe it's Alan Sepinwall himself who plays the guy that gets killed.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's fun.
By this point, I've become a big fan of the show, did a lot of the great write-ups on it. And when Pontecorvo's driving back, the track in his car is Dreaming by Blondie.
Yep.
Dreaming is free.
Oh.
I caught that too.
Okay. So, I guess my first thing is, am I supposed to take anything from... Well, no, it's a two-part question, everyone. I apologize. And I didn't look this up. Sorry, listeners. First, this episode is titled Members Only. What is a members only jacket? I understand that is what he's wearing, but what is it? What is this? What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of a poppet? What means a poppet? What is the meaning of the members only jacket?
I don't know that the jacket has deeper meaning. I think it's one of those double episode titles. It works on the physical level because it is the physical jacket that it's the brand, it's the style of jacket that Eugene is wearing. Eugene is the main character of the episode.
Is that a brand?
I don't know if it's a brand. It's
an
a
actual
style.
brand.
It is a brand.
It's the style. It's kind of like the forgive me for explaining it like this, but I think it helps. A varsity jacket without the stuff on it,
like
right?
A
So
Letterman's
you've
jacket.
It's got those little shoulder flaps.
Yeah, it's got the the elastic kind of neckline, and it's usually got
It's a cool jacket. It's very specific looking.
Yeah, that's a thing. A members only jacket is a thing.
It's had a revitalization recently. They sell
Yeah.
it mostly online, but at places like Urban Outfitters, I guess it's become more like a hipster kind of thing.
I saw it, and I know in the show it's a little bit of an enchanted object, which we'll talk about another time. And I saw the jacket, and I said, this is a terrible thing to wear to a hit. Because most people aren't wearing these. And if anyone casually saw you, they'd say, he's wearing one of those members-only jackets. Right? So that was the first thing that got me. The other thing that got me was, and again, these are just observations more than questions. It was just, this whole hit was very peculiar. And I know it was quick. It was peculiar anyway. There's a recognition between him and the guy before he shoots him? Or is there a feigned recognition? Like, hey, Teddy, right? Right? And Teddy's response isn't like, who the fuck are you? He says, oh, hey.
Reaches out to shake his hand, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a knowing, it seems. We're at this place. It's a public place. This is not after hours. There are other people eating.
Yeah.
Okay. He comes in, clean shot, boom, boom, through the head, from the side, drops the gun, exits. I can't believe we're allowing this many witnesses. You're wearing a really specific jacket. The guy seemed to know him. I don't know. It felt so off to me comparatively to other hits and deaths on this show. Maybe this is business as usual. I don't know.
It did feel a little weird to me, too, that it was in a public place and there were people around. That said, the minute shots go off, every person in that place is like...
That's true. Yeah,
hiding their face away, the whole
Who's
thing.
going to ID him, really? And I guess, what does he really look like
They
anyway?
kind of go over this in The Godfather. Like, Michael, I believe, makes it, like, or they're talking about other people in the restaurant. You don't look them in the eye, but you don't look away. They'll be scared, trust me. Most people, I mean, unfortunately, a video came across my news feed in the last few weeks of some guy got killed on 9th Avenue. It was blatantly some kind of hit. Guy just walks up behind them, pulls out a gun. There's a bunch of people just walking to work, walking to restaurants, walking to the subway. Shoots him in the back of the head. He falls over on the sidewalk, and everybody who just saw this just flies off in every different direction. No one's going to try to tackle the guy with the gun. You probably didn't even notice him until the gun went off. He was just some asshole standing there. I think it works. I think actually, and believe it or not, the mob, it's a little harder these days with all the cameras everywhere, but the mob did a lot of hits in public because it is that kind of environment. It's like, who's looking until you know what to look for.
And you drop the gun, why?
Because then you, the shooter, will never be caught with the gun.
Oh, okay.
If you're caught with the gun that committed the murder, they can tie you directly to it.
Well,
if the gun and the murderer are separate, they have to tie that gun to you somehow.
No prints on the gun.
Yeah, he's got the gloves.
You leave the gun, you take the cannoli.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the guy he is hitting is named, he's got a really specific
Teddy
name.
Spiridakis.
Teddy Spiridakis.
Greek.
A name
Greek
that
guy.
really stands out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the members only jacket is also interesting because as Jordan said, it's there, but it's only mentioned briefly. I think of the membership in the mob.
Yeah.
Of course. I also think of...
Well, and it's membership that's at stake here, right? He
Right.
wants out.
Exclusivity.
Yeah.
I could be reaching here the membership of death. Like, only the dead get in. And death is hanging over this episode. I don't know. But, yeah.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel it watching it.
Absolutely. No, I feel it too. I also love this next shot. It's a little on the nose, but I like it. When Eugene wipes the blood off his face, and there's just a big blood smear on the New Jersey map.
On the map, which for me meant wherever you go.
Yeah.
There.
It's also exactly. It was good. Like I said, just barely on the nose, but
Macbeth already mentioned in relationship with this guy, you can't wash the blood from your hands, right?
Yep.
If you get it off your face, fine. Now it's on the map. It's just you can't undo the deed.
Well said.
This is not Carmela at her most likable. She does come to pick up Ginny for a spa date, but she's showing off her new car to a woman who's at risk of losing everything. She's so excited to show her the car. She looks back at it and then pretends,
I don't think she's doing it on purpose.
I think
think
it's
so?
a thought. I read it as a thoughtless moment. Not like I think she went there to do a nice thing.
Yes, I think
I'm gonna
careless,
bring
not
you to
callous.
this.
Yeah.
I think. I don't think she thought about it until it's like, oh, I don't know that she would go home and be like, that might have been like too much, which is why she then brags about it. But it's like, no, she went there to do a nice thing. It's just the first thing Jenny's going to notice is her new Porsche. Something that she's going to have taken away from her. Yeah. Another thing taken away from her. It is icky. It's an ick moment. I think the intent is a little more pure than that. Though I've always been a Carmela stan, so here we go.
And Ginny is not like dressing as nicely, presenting herself as nicely. The hair's not done. The makeup's not top notch. Right. That's deliberate. They're crunched for money.
Johnny out of the house, even something nice like planning a wedding. I'm sure adds stress. She's dodging fucking creditors.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Yeah.
Well, and when you're depressed, you don't take as good care of yourself, right?
Right.
Right. And this is someone that already struggles with taking care of himself. Mm-hmm. So.
Back to the Bing. Vito, again, going on and on about this weight loss to anyone who will listen.
Riveting.
Yeah. Very funny, though. I like that he's talking about the importance of, Tony should come with me to the gym or whatever. And then he can't fucking walk across the Bing parking lot. He has to park in the handicap space and get mad when the one handicapped ex-judge comes to watch the
as if that's not a good guy to have in your back pocket.
Fucking guy's here again.
Like an idiot, too, on top of it. Like the woman who's like a host or at the Bing has to be like, the man's a former judge.
Yeah.
You idiot.
I just love that he's exercise, weight loss, all this work, and how good it is. God forbid he should have a heart attack kind of thing. And then he can't walk across the fucking parking lot. It's not that big of a parking lot. I drive past it daily. It's just very funny.
Again?
God, that's funny. So he gets up. Tony's got a new boat.
Stugatz 2.
Yep. And he's on the new boat, but he wanted to talk to... First of all, he tells that awful joke to break the ice. If your nose runs and your feet smell, you're built upside down.
Stupid.
But poor Eugene, he gets the news here from Silvio. Tony can't even tell him himself, and you can tell that in and of itself is hurtful. Tony wanted me to talk to you. That's a no-go. You're part of the team. Very middle management kind of... It's the kind of thing fucking like Michael Scott would tell somebody. Just so you're part of the team here. You're a valuable member of our society, and it can't be accommodated. We're sorry. He's not getting a vacation time approved.
Yeah,
right.
And he kind of...
It's not even like if Michael tells you. It's like Michael told Dwight to tell you that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I talk to Tony at least? I wouldn't bother him. He's on the new boat.
Yeah.
Lovely.
On the new boat.
Boats, Porsches, expensive sushi. It's just all over the place. All over the place. And then he walks out and Eugene is gutted. And of course, this is the most interesting Vito scene at this point yet. Because, again, watching this for the first time, you're wondering, okay, everything is going real well for Tony. Who's going to be the threat this season, right? And they're setting us up. We'll see where this all goes. They're probably... not going to live up to expectations on this, but they're setting Vito up as a threat here, putting the bug in Eugene's ear, like, if Tony's happened to, I'm the top earner now. If something happens to Tony, I could be running this family one day. Dream on, right? But
it just sounds so fucking stupid coming from him, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, of course. But Eugene's in a desperate situation, right? And
we're taking it in much more than Eugene is.
Correct.
Right? He probably can't even hear what he's really saying.
Right. Barb calls Tony on a boat, and Tony, she can't take care of Junior. Something happened to Barb's husband. He inhaled toxic chemicals. They have to go to the hospital. Janice and Bobby can't take care of Junior. Tony's very upset about that. Tries to call, throws the phone. God damn it. Beautiful day on his luxury boat ruined. It is a nice boat. But, so he has to go back. Fucking Bobby with the train.
Oh, isn't he the cutest?
His little hat.
He's so cute.
It's my hobby, Janice. Why you gotta belittle it?
He's just the cutest.
But they're interviewing for the baby at a private school. And it's very ridiculous, but of course she does call Tony out. This is one of my favorite exchanges of the scene. Nobody was more competitive than your wife when it came to this stuff with AJ. And Tony's answer was, yeah, a lot of good it did. Just fantastic. Fan-fucking-tastic. Tony is furious. You know what, fuck it. You want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. That moment with Bobby in the conductor's hat.
That's so good.
Janice mouths off to Tony, and Tony points you. You and I are going to talk. Well, you didn't have to wear your fucking hat.
Brilliant.
Poor Bobby. Poor Bobby. I think it's cute he's got a little train hobby here.
We all think it's cute. It's very cute.
Everyone except Janice and Tony Soprano.
Correct. Joyless. Both of them joyless.
Carm and Angie are having dinner, and we find out a couple things here, that Artie and Charmaine are getting back together.
Yep.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a sense at several points that maybe this is a pattern for them. They're together, they're not. They're together, they're not. Over their life, over the span of their life.
Yeah, I think it's in the next episode they actually say something about the first time they broke up.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, so things are a little bit more hopeful for Artie than I realized.
Yeah.
This is something they do. We all know couples like this.
Yeah. Where we last left Artie, he really needed Charmaine in his life, so I'm glad that we're getting that back, however it happens. And how Carmela and Angie, you're not really sure what happened. They just kind of fell away, but here we're back. I think Tony maybe, destroying her Cadillac the one time they had a fucking conversation together probably might have had something to do with it. But
well, and also I'm sure it would be painful for both of them to hang out with each other. Carmela because Angie is her biggest fear, and Angie because Carmela is what she once had almost.
Yes. Yeah.
So. Maybe not compatible friends for a while.
Yeah. And we get the best Eugene and Deanne scene. I love this scene where they he is breaking the news to her, and she's broken. She's devastated about this, and he's trying so hard to salvage it. He's deluding himself, as we find out just a scene or two later. But well, maybe it's for the best. We'll find a good place. All these guys understand his image. We'll go to Livingston or North Caldwell. A year or two, I'll make captain. You'll see. She's not having it. She brings out the heroin bag that finds under his bed, and you see Eugene register it for a second, and then immediately, he doesn't have the worst point here. Well, if Florida's any better, it's the drug capital of the world. He's not wrong, but
well, it underlines that Florida wasn't going to be the solution, but
right, yeah, but I don't know. Maybe if he wasn't involved in the mob, maybe he would have a little bit more time to be more involved, but who knows. So yeah, this is very sad. He's she flat out says, put a bullet in his fucking head. I can't do that. He's the boss, Deanne. Boss of what? He's a piece of shit. She just really lays it out. True Lady Macbeth fashion now. Kill the king, kill the king. It's your aunt's money, your money. It has nothing to do with him. There's this wonderful Jersey contemporary I want you to look at. He's not. He can't do it. He's not giving her what she wants, and she's just beside herself and walks out. Great acting here. Great scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
great scene.
Both of them. Wonderful.
Yeah. Just good work. Tony shows up at Junior's. What's he watching, Paul?
Okay. The stanza goes like this. The boasts of heraldry, the pomp of power, all that beauty, all that wealth e'er gave, all alike await the inevitable hour. Paths of glory lead but to the grave. That is the stanza from a poem called Elegy, written in an English churchyard by Thomas Gray. It's where the novel Paths of Glory and the movie that Junior is watching get their title. That thematically is the Wheel of Fortune that the episode revolves around. And this movie is one of my favorite movies. It's an early Stanley Kubrick movie. Not one of his most famous ones, but
yeah, I knew the movie and I know Kubrick, but I didn't know the two. That's actually really wild. I forgot that that's a Kubrick movie.
Yeah, it's an early. I don't know how he got away with making this in the 1950s, the most conformist decade in the history of Hollywood. But it's an anti-war film about the First World War. The French High Command is pilloried in this movie, and what they do in the movie, long story short, is having lost face in a terrible battle, they choose 3 men to run through a show trial and execute for cowardice. So these 3 guys are destroyed, in effect, for quote-unquote disloyalty. And what happens in this episode? 2 guys, soldiers in the mob, die because of their disloyalty or in the course of their disloyalty. The third, being Tony, because of his loyalty, because of his misplaced loyalty, ends up gut shot and bleeding out on the floor. It's great. It's a great reference. It works. This movie would have come out in the prime of Junior being a gangster. And he is looking at it, he barely knows what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
It would have been his glory as a soldier, and he doesn't even know what he's looking at. I love that they bring it up here.
Love that, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Junior's lost his teeth, lost my uppers, God fuck it all.
Jesus.
And kudos to Dominic Chianese for appearing on camera without his teeth.
Yeah.
That could be big too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. A lot of bravery from these people, a lot of vulnerability, showing uglier and less flattering sides of themselves for our entertainment. Thank you. Had a banana in there. I'll get J. Edgar Hoover right on it. Great line. Gene gets a call. They're having that follow-up scene in the bedroom. And he talks about her going down ahead of time. He'll join her later. What? We'll get a condo, something, a vacation house. She's just even more verklempt at this point. Phone rings. His master's voice. He takes it in the bathroom. Now? And we find out that he is another yet cooperator. And he finds out that Ray Curto cooperator. We lost a big asset this month. He puts the pieces together. And now even the FBI is telling him, Gene, Florida's something you just got to let go.
Yeah.
And I don't know. This guy is a terrible guy. He has managed to make me really care about this in 45 minutes.
It's
I feel gutted for him there in that car. Just the hopelessness and how trapped he is and
how much I don't like this FBI guy who pretends to be his friend.
Right.
In the way that he, chit-chats with him. Gino, you gotta call me. I'm like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like we should catch up over coffee sometime kind of tone. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Beautifully shot sequence of him looking at the album. Another thing he did a great job of in this hour is just really conveying with very few words how hurt he is by the trajectory of his son and how much this son means to him. And the little smile on his face while he's playing with the seashell, and they get that kind of slow, memory evocative kind of cut on the side of his face, and then we get that very kind of concerned last look of his. We don't realize we've changed scenes yet, and then he steps off the speaker. And I gotta say, man, this is
The most realistic hanging ever.
I've ever seen on film.
Yeah.
Truly, they do not.
It goes on forever.
They do not spare you a second. It down. You want to talk about circle of life and where's the dignity, Tony? Down to the piss dripping down his leg after he finally has that last little twitch.
Yeah.
The
Unbelievable.
herk-a-jerk motion that he's not even there for anymore. Oof, it's brutal. It's brutal.
It takes a lot of balls to have this go on for 1:20 and just have your audience sit with it.
Yeah, it goes on forever. The constant motion, the involuntary motion of his hands to try to take it back, even though it's deliberate. Amazing. Great physical acting from this actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did sit with for a minute that I was like, what an ugly way to kill yourself. I know this method is common.
Yeah.
I just wondered, I was like, you're a gangster. These guys all have guns or, even drugs would be better. There's something about the hanging. I don't know, the finality of it. Maybe on the artistic side, we just wanted that image, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, really brutal. But well done. It's one of those beautiful things, but also horrible to look at. But well done. Kudos to the best portrayed hanging I've ever seen. And
and of course, it made me think of Adriana. It made me think of what is the way out for these people? This was his only way out, and I guess the money transfers to his family. Maybe they can still do something with it. But.
Yeah, his wife will be free to go with the money, but as long as he's there, they're fucked.
It just, that scene then makes you want to immediately rewatch the whole episode.
Yeah.
You know, and think about what he's thinking in all these moments and his struggle. I mean, the struggle of why is he even going through all this with Tony if he knows he can't get out of the FBI and vice versa, and it's so interesting.
Yeah,
I guess that's the real hanging.
Getting one of these parties to sign off on him going to Florida is a monumental task, as we found out. Getting both of them is impossible. He was fucked from the start. He was deluding himself, frankly.
Right.
But man, it's rough. But good stuff.
You know, I think that might have something to do with the son too. You know, I'm lucky to not really have much of this in my life, but I can imagine that the desperation to get out, to have to change location, to find that joy again, especially because in looking at the photos we can see that the beach is a happy place for that family.
Yeah.
And so to do everything you possibly can, even if it's a fool's dream, to get out of there and go to the beach to save my family.
Every suicidal person has some level of thought that they'll be better off without me. No matter what your circumstances, that's a part of the cocktail that makes up a suicidal person.
Yeah, what's sad is in this case it's true.
Yeah. But kudos, Robert Funaro. You really fucking. I know. No, but that's the tragedy of it, right? Kudos, Robert Funaro. You fucking knocked this out of the park. I was so impressed with this performance. I hope they submitted this for an Emmy consideration. This is one of those just like one-off supporting things that just fucking blew my mind when I saw it. I was like, holy... Eugene fucking Pontecorvo, the guy who cracked a bottle of Snapple over a homophobic comment.
Sweet. He was like an animal.
Right.
And he was, but we ended up giving a shit.
Man, so good. Good job to all involved. Writers, everything. Talk about a scene that ruins a song for you.
Who's down there? Artie Shaw.
Comes Love by Artie Shaw is playing on the radio as Tony's fixing Junior some pasta. Not long, just Junior, who's down there? Artie Shaw. Cooks up a little more, and Junior comes down. Cazzara Malanga. Shoots him right in the gut. It's such a shock. You barely register what happened, and then Tony's on the floor and Junior's on his way upstairs.
What did he say to him in Italian?
Malanga's the name of Pussy Malanga. I think it's as simple as I remember looking it up at the time. I could look it up right now.
It's
I
like
guess,
you should die.
It's like die, mother. It's like you die, curse you. It's just like It's something you would say to somebody, and it's something Junior would say to somebody he would have killed in his prime, who would have understood Italian. It's just like a damn you, fuck you, Malanga. Yeah. So he runs up the stairs. Here's a question that gets into some dark territory that maybe we can dissect at a future date once we've gotten more context on this incident. But on one hand, Junior's totally out of his fucking mind, obviously. The Junior we met at the beginning of the series is, for all intents and purposes, gone.
Right.
On the other hand, I found myself asking myself this time, watching through, maybe, seventh or eighth time seeing this, if Bobby or Janice is there that night, do one of them get shot? Or is this specifically reserved for Tony?
I think specifically reserved for Tony.
Right, I agree. And that adds a freaky layer to it, doesn't it?
I think some of it has to do with Tony's delusion. I don't think Janice would be treating him the same way he's treating Junior. Tony's behaving as if Junior is Junior, and we know Junior's gone. Janice treats Junior like he's demented. And so, Tony's like making jokes like Artie Shaw's down here, but Junior legitimately doesn't know who's downstairs, which is why he comes down with the gun.
Right.
So that's why I don't think it has anything to do with season 1. I think it has everything to do with Tony's refusal to understand that Junior's not Junior anymore.
And listen, Alzheimer's and dementia, every case is different. In the end, it takes everything. But a lot of times what will happen, and we see this with relatives who we go to visit who are affected by these disorders, is they will associate certain people with certain other people, and it all kind of blends into one shape for them. Tony at one time, even though that is his nephew, is also a rival, right? And Pussy Malanga is going to operate that same shape. That's not going to be the same thing with Janice, right? So Tony could be
to a demented mind, a threatening figure in the house that Junior needs to defend himself from. In this case, Pussy Malanga.
Yep.
And there is a gun in this house.
Right, which is wild, which Tony probably doesn't know.
Yeah.
And he slides it. That shot of him sliding. How pathetic is that of him sliding it under the bed and
He
then
looks
hiding
like
in the
fucking
closet.
Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween hiding in this closet. It's great,
Yeah.
that shot.
Oh, he goes right to being a child. That's what a child does when they mess up. They go hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's
Circle
very
of life.
sad.
Circle jerk of life.
Wheel of Fortune. He gets in the closet and hides. He's terrified. And Tony is laying on the floor realizing he's bleeding. And they have the fucking audacity in this moment to cut. It's just such audacity. They cut away from this and you're just like, to Carmela and Angie having the last beat of this episode other than the final moments.
But what a meaningful beat.
Correct.
Because Corvette plus Tony's gut shot, that's the final spin on the wheel, right? Mm-hmm. That's 0-0.
Yeah.
You lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Angie's last line is, they said I'm better off owning it outright. And it cuts to, not back, but it cuts to Carmela's reaction. And I wondered, is Carmela thinking, oh, she's better off without him there?
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
Yeah. Nuts.
But also has to come to face, like, oh, a self-made woman.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yep. And you can see those doubts about herself in there too. It's a loaded moment, and yes, Jordan so articulately put the Wheel of Fortune rides again, and it's finally come up on bankrupt. I don't know how they shot this last sequence the way they did. What really blew my mind.
This whole sequence in Junior's house is gorgeous. It's
great.
Yeah.
Never shot his house like this before.
Yeah, it's
There's
awesome.
a shot at the beginning that's really wide where Junior's just dwarfed by his living room. When Tony first is cooking and before Junior comes downstairs, they follow him through a couple of hallways and you pass through a door. It's all beautifully done. And
So-
then this last section takes for fucking ever.
Yeah, again, they really let you simmer in it, like the pasta cook. By the way, the sound of that water boiling is underneath all of this.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so good. It's such a great device. Tony's calling out. Uncle June he goes for the phone. Here's what first blew my fucking mind about this, because I've worked on sets where your character is supposed to be sweaty, and right before they start rolling, they spritz you, they make you up, right? What killed me about this was Tony's laying on the floor, and he's dry. And by the time he gets up and falls over with the phone, his fucking head is covered in sweat. I don't know how they did that without a cut, unless they just have him under such hot lighting that he just was dripping by the end of the shot.
Or he's manufacturing that.
Also possible.
It's possible James
and
Gandolfini put himself in an emotional state to be able to do that,
Yeah.
which you can do.
it's just it's absurdly good acting.
Yeah.
The panic
Not
set.
good for you, by the way.
No, of
but-
course not.
But very good.
No, yeah. And Uncle June called 911. He's trembling. Junior hears him, but he's sad. He's trepidatious. He's confused. And Tony just, in agonizingly slow fashion, just uses every last bit of strength he has to crawl and fight and claw his way into the kitchen to get 911. And then he can't even give the nature of the emergency. He just passes out to the sound of the boiling water.
And now
Well,
the question of luck is how long before this 911 operator says, I just got to trace this call.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and he rips that first phone out of the wall, and you're like, oh my god, he's fucked.
Yeah.
Oh, right, the second phone. Oh my god, it's high up on the wall.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you have to articulate your fingers because the 9s and the 1s are a little far apart.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, is he gonna make it? And no, he fucking passes out before he can say a word.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's so funny because 911 is such a simple number, but in that circumstance, it was like, is he going to get the 911 out?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
They did a nice job panning like up
Yep.
the wall. It's like a
Yeah.
climb
Yeah.
for him.
The
at
blood
that point.
streaking on the phone, just all so good. That last shot.
Not all
is-
that dissimilar to the blood streaking on the map, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Something to that.
Yeah. New Jersey is just death for these characters. But yeah, that's it. And then we are out and we get the last refrain of the William Burroughs poem and credits. Final thoughts on members only, and any last bits to get out before we call it a day.
My closing thoughts are similar to my opening thoughts. It's a really exciting, really dynamic, tight episode of television. We have a fully self-contained story, which is Eugene Pontecorvo's, and yet it seems to portend so much of what is to come, because it would not be enough for that story to be an isolated thing unto itself, which is why I really struggle with what we're shown of his life and what thematically that might inform for the rest of this season. I struggle with some of the images there, in a good way, the struggle, by the way. And, what a crazy position to put your protagonist in the beginning of a season, where it's like, even if he survives, which the viewer does not know, even if he survives, what is the period of this convalescence going to be like? You know, that's the main character. Unless you do another outrageous time jump, which is unlikely, what is the outcome of this?
Yeah, it's a major game changer for the status quo in the world of the show.
Right, and in ostensibly your last season.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like, okay, all right, guys, last season, let's Tony's up at Tony's out. The main player's out. What else we got?
Yeah.
You know, crazy. A huge risk.
We've got Vito.
We got Vito.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and hell of an opener, hell of a start, eerie, unsettling. Again, I'm trying to avoid what I know and just go off of what I was feeling when I first watched it, but I was like, this is not going to a good place. None of this is going somewhere good.
No, I mean, that's the theme of the episode for me, is for everything that's going so well, the Wheel of Fortune, we've talked about the whole episode, you never feel good. It's not a feel-good episode, despite there being very little conflict for Tony.
Agent Harris also does not feel good.
Yeah.
Correct.
He's contracted some kind of
parasite.
But,
no, but it's just, you don't feel good the whole episode. Something is off.
Yes.
And it's
this
also
season, you know.
And what I also like about it is it's very clear, as Jordan said and Paul said and you said, Lily, and in various different ways, we're grappling with really big questions thematically this year. And I'm very excited to tackle those with all of you guys. 6 is my favorite for those reasons, for that reason, actually. As a whole, I count 1 and 2 as part of that. There's just so many big ideas in this last season that are just fascinating to tell through these characters. I'm excited to break it down. We got Join the Club up next. Thank you guys so much for your time and your smarts on this. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mancini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And we will be back for Join the Club, a fascinating trip to Costa Mesa.
I had a banana in there.
Got myself a gun.